There are seasons in life when the world feels unbearably quiet, not peaceful, but hollow. Seasons when grief settles into the corners of the heart like dust, untouched and unmoving. In those moments, it is easy to believe that God has stepped away, or that His plan has unraveled somewhere beyond our sight. We search for meaning in the silence and find none. We pray, and the heavens feel closed. We walk, and every step feels heavier than the last, but life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes, the quietest miracles arrive in the form of ordinary people, a boy who needs a home, a stranger carrying a burden, a carpenter who believes his story has already ended. Their paths cross not by chance, but by a design we rarely recognize in the moment. And through them, God whispers reminders that healing often begins in the most unexpected places. This story is about such lives. It is about the slow mending of a wounded heart, the courage to trust again, and the grace found in offering shelter to someone the world has cast aside. It is about guilt, forgiveness, and the quiet strength that grows when broken people choose to walk together. Most of all, it is a reminder that even when we cannot see the purpose, even when the path feels heavy beneath our feet, God's plan is still unfolding, gently, patiently, and always on time. And sometimes, the very people we fear, avoid, or misunderstand are the ones sent to lead us back to hope. Elian woke before the sun, as he always did. The world was still dark, but he could feel the faint stirring of morning in the air, the quiet shift that came before light. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long moment, letting the silence settle around him. It had become a companion these past years, one he neither welcomed nor rejected. It simply was. He lit a small lamp. Its glow touched the wooden walls of his home, revealing the familiar shapes of his tools, the chair where Mara once sat, and the shawl he kept draped over it. He never moved it. He never washed it. He never spoke of it. But he kept it there, as if the fabric itself held the last warmth of her presence, in the workshop. He began sanding a plank of cedar. The rhythm steadied him. Wood did not ask questions. It did not demand explanations. It yielded to patience, and patience was the one thing grief had taught him well. He was smoothing the final edge when he heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate, familiar, Father Corin appeared in the doorway, his breath visible in the cold morning air. "Elian," he said softly, "I need your help." Elian set the plank aside. "With what?" "There's a boy," Corin said. "Tomas. He's been stealing bread from the chapel." Elian wiped dust from his hands. "Then speak to him." "I have," Corin replied. "But he listens only to hunger. And hunger listens to no one." Elian waited. Corin stepped closer. "You knew hunger once." Elian's jaw tightened. "I did." "And you knew what it was like to feel unseen." Elian looked away. "What do you want me to do?" "Speak to him," Corin said. "Not as a priest. As a man who remembers." Elian hesitated. He had spent years avoiding the weight of other people's needs. But Corin's eyes held a quiet plea, and Elian had never been able to refuse him. "I'll try," he said. Corin exhaled in relief. "He's behind the chapel. He thinks no one knows." Elian nodded, took his coat, and stepped into the cold morning. The sky was beginning to pale, and the village lay still, as if holding its breath. Behind the chapel, he found Tomas crouched beside a crate, a half-eaten loaf in his hands. The boy froze when he saw Elian. Eyes wide, ready to run, Elian raised a hand. "Stay." Tomas hesitated. "You're not a thief," Elian said quietly. "You're a boy. And boys should learn to build." The boy blinked, confused, Elian gestured toward the workshop. Come. If you're hungry, you can work for your bread. Tomas stared at him for a long moment, then slowly stood, and so it began, not with trust, not with warmth, but with a simple choice, to walk beside a man who offered work instead of judgment. Tomas followed Elian into the workshop with the cautious steps of someone entering a stranger's home for the first time. His clothes were thin, patched in places, and his hair hung in uneven strands as if cut with a dull knife. He looked like a boy who had learned to survive by disappearing. Elian handed him a small broom. Sweep the shavings. Slow, steady strokes. Tomas nodded and began sweeping. His movements were clumsy at first, but he tried, and that mattered more to Elian than skill. After a while, Elian placed a small loaf of bread on the table. Eat. Tomas hesitated, as if expecting the offer to be snatched away. It's yours, Elian said. The boy devoured it in seconds. When he finished, Tomas wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Elian paused. The truth was complicated. He wasn't sure he was helping. He wasn't sure he even knew how. You remind me of someone, Elian said. Who? Myself. Tomas looked down at the floor, his grip tightening on the broom. Elian returned to his workbench. If you come back tomorrow, I'll teach you how to sand a plank. Tomas looked up, eyes wide with something like hope, or fear of hope. I'll come, he said, and he did, every day. 3 weeks passed before anything unusual happened. Tomas returned each morning, sweeping, sanding, learning. He spoke little, but his eyes followed everything Elian did, as if memorizing the shape of a life he had never known. One cold afternoon, as Elian and Tomas carried planks from the shed, they saw a figure approaching from the northern road. The man walked slowly, leaning slightly to one side, as though carrying a weight that was not visible. His cloak was torn at the hem, and dust clung to his boots. Tomas stiffened. Who is that? Elian watched the stranger draw closer. His face was calm, lined with fatigue rather than fear. His eyes, though shadowed, held a quiet depth, the kind that came from long journeys and heavier thoughts. When the man reached them, he paused. Good day, he said, voice low and steady. Elian nodded. You're far from the main road. I took a wrong turn, the stranger replied. Or perhaps the right one. Hard to say. Tomas stepped behind Elian, gripping his coat. The stranger noticed but did not comment. Is there a place I might rest? Just for the night. Elian hesitated. Strangers rarely came through the village, and when they did, they brought trouble more often than peace. But something in the man's posture, the quiet humility, the exhaustion, stirred a memory of his own wandering days. There's an empty shed behind my workshop, Elian said. It's not much, but it's dry. The stranger bowed his head. That is more than enough. As Elian led him to the shed, Tomas whispered, We don't know him. No, Elian said. But sometimes people need shelter more than suspicion. He did not yet know how true that would become. The stranger slept through the night without stirring. In the morning, Elian found him sitting outside the shed, hands clasped, eyes closed as if in prayer. Tomas watched him from a distance, wary but curious. Elian approached. You're awake early. The man opened his eyes. Old habits. What's your name? Elian asked. Call me Rian. Elian nodded. You're welcome to stay another night if you need. Rian studied him for a moment. You offer kindness easily. No, Elian said quietly. Not easily. But I try. Rian's gaze softened. Then I will accept it. Throughout the day, Rian helped with small tasks, lifting beams, sorting tools, repairing a broken hinge. He moved with deliberate care, as if every action carried meaning. Tomas watched him closely, suspicion slowly giving way to fascination. At midday, as they rested, Tomas finally asked, "Where are you going?" Rian looked at the boy with a gentle sadness. "I'm not sure anymore." Elian sensed the weight behind the words. "You're running from something." Rian didn't deny it. He simply looked down at his hands. "I was entrusted with something sacred. Something I failed to protect." Tomas leaned forward. "What was it?" Rian shook his head. "A burden I must carry alone." Elian felt a familiar ache, the ache of guilt, of believing one mistake had rewritten the course of a life. He recognized it because he lived with it every day. "You can rest here," Elian said. "For as long as you need." Rian looked up, surprised. "You don't even know what I've done." Elian met his gaze. "Sometimes knowing isn't the point." Rian exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath he had held for years. By the end of the week, the village had noticed the stranger. People whispered as he passed, their eyes following him with suspicion. Strangers were rare, and a man who kept to himself was even rarer. Father Corin visited Elian's workshop one afternoon. "I hear you've taken in a traveler." Elian nodded. He needed shelter. Corin's expression was unreadable. "And what does he seek?" "Rest," Elian said. "Nothing more." Corin studied him. "You believe that?" Elian hesitated. "I believe he carries something heavy. But not danger." Corin stepped closer. "Be careful, Elian. A man running from his past can bring his storms with him." Elian felt Tomas watching from the corner. "I know." Corin softened. "I trust your judgment. But the village will not. They fear what they do not understand." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Rian sat alone outside the shed. Elian joined him. "They're talking about you," Elian said. Rian nodded. "They should." "Why?" Rian looked toward the horizon. "Because I failed a vow. A sacred one. And the world does not forgive such things." Elian felt the words settle heavily between them. "Do you seek forgiveness?" Rian closed his eyes. "I seek a place where the weight doesn't crush me." Elian understood that more deeply than he wished to admit. A cold wind swept through the village the next morning. Elian found Rian sitting by the shed, turning something over in his hands beneath his cloak. When Rian noticed him, he quickly hid it. Elian raised an eyebrow. "You don't have to hide things from me." Rian hesitated. "Some things are safer unseen." Elian sat beside him. "You said you failed a vow." "What vow?" Rian looked toward the distant hills, as if searching for courage. "I was entrusted with a sacred object. A relic carried by my order for generations. I was its guardian." Tomas, who had been sweeping nearby, froze. Rian continued, voice low. "We were ambushed on the road. I fled. I left the relic behind." Elian felt the weight of the confession settle between them. "Why did you run?" Rian's jaw tightened. "Fear. Not of death, but of failing the people who depended on me. And in running, I became the failure I feared." Tomas stepped closer. "Did they chase you?" Rian nodded. "They still might. A relic is worth more than a man's life." Elian studied him. And now? Now I walk, Rian said. Not toward redemption. Just away from the place where I fell. Elian understood that feeling too well, the instinct to flee the ruins of one's own mistakes. You can rest here, Elian said quietly. No one will take that from you. Rian looked at him with gratitude that needed no words. 2 days later, a storm rolled in from the north. Rain hammered the rooftops, and wind rattled the shutters. Elian secured the workshop while Tomas gathered tools inside. Rian stood at the doorway, watching the storm with a strange stillness. You've seen worse, Elian said. Rian nodded. Storms outside are nothing. It's the ones inside that break a man. Elian paused. You speak like someone who's lived with both. Rian gave a faint smile. Haven't we all? As the storm intensified, a loud knock echoed through the workshop. Tomas jumped. Elian opened the door to find 2 travelers, cloaked, soaked, and tense. We're looking for a man, one said. A deserter. He carries something that belongs to us. Elian felt Tomas press against his side. Rian remained behind him, silent. What man? Elian asked. Tall. Worn cloak. Quiet. Dangerous. Elian's heart pounded. He glanced at Rian, who stood still as stone. No one like that here, Elian said. The travelers exchanged a look. If he comes through, you'll tell us. Elian nodded, though he had no intention of doing so. When they left, Tomas whispered, they were looking for him. Elian closed the door. I know. Rian stepped forward. You shouldn't have lied. Elian met his gaze. You shouldn't have been alone. Rian's eyes softened. You don't owe me protection. Maybe not, Elian said. But I know what it's like to be hunted by your own mistakes. Rian bowed his head. Thank you. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, something steadier began to form. The storm passed by morning, leaving the village washed clean. Elian invited Rian and Tomas into his home for breakfast, something he had not done with anyone in years. Tomas sat stiffly at the table, unsure of the new arrangement. Rian sat with quiet gratitude, hands folded, posture humble. Elian placed bread and stew before them. Eat. Tomas dug in immediately. Rian took a slow bite, savoring it as if it were the first warm meal he'd had in months. This is good, Rian said. Elian shrugged. Simple food. Simple things matter, Rian replied. More than we admit. Tomas glanced at him. Will those men come back? Rian nodded. If they believe the relic is near, they will. Elian leaned back. Is it? Rian hesitated, then reached beneath his cloak. He placed a small wrapped bundle on the table. Tomas gasped. You said you left it, Elian whispered. I did, Rian said. But I returned for it. I couldn't leave it behind. Not again. Elian stared at the bundle. Why bring it here? Because I had nowhere else to go, Rian said. And because I think I was meant to. Elian felt something shift inside him, a quiet recognition, a stirring he had not felt since before Mara's death. Tomas whispered, Are you going to run again? Rian looked at the boy with gentle resolve. No. Not this time. Elian realized then that the stranger was not just passing through. He was searching for a place to stop running, and perhaps, without meaning to, Elian had offered him one. The next morning, the village was restless. Word had spread that strangers were searching for a fugitive. Some villagers whispered that Elian was hiding him. Others warned Tomas to stay away from the workshop. Elian ignored the murmurs, but Tomas felt them like thorns. They think Rian is dangerous, he said quietly. Elian looked at the boy. Do you think he is? Tomas hesitated. No. But. I'm scared. Elian knelt beside him. Being scared doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're paying attention. Tomas nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. Rian approached them, cloak drawn tight. I should leave, he said. I won't bring trouble to your door. Elian stood. Running won't end this. It will keep you safe. Elian shook his head. You think your presence is the danger. But fear grows faster in the dark. If you leave now, the village will believe the worst. Rian looked torn. I don't want to be the reason harm comes to you. You're not, Elian said. People fear what they don't understand. But they can learn. Tomas stepped forward. Stay, he whispered. Please. Rian's eyes softened. You trust me? Tomas nodded. You didn't run this time. Rian closed his eyes, the boy's words striking deeper than any accusation. When he opened them again, something had settled, a quiet resolve. I'll stay, he said. Elian felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not relief. Something gentler. Something like hope. The travelers returned at dusk. Their boots pounded against the earth as they approached the workshop. Elian stepped outside, Tomas behind him, Rian standing tall at his side. We're looking for the deserter, one of the men said. We know he's here. Rian stepped forward. I'm not hiding. The men stiffened. You have something that belongs to us. Rian reached beneath his cloak and held out the wrapped relic. This is what you want. The men reached for it, but Rian didn't release it. I fled, he said. I failed. But I returned for this. And I carried it farther than any of you would have alone. The men exchanged glances. Rian continued, voice steady. I won't run anymore. But I won't be dragged back in chains. If you want this relic, take it. But my life is my own now. The men hesitated. They had expected a coward, not a man standing firm. Finally, one of them spoke. Keep it. If you return for it, then you've already paid the price. The other nodded reluctantly. Your order won't pursue you. Not after this. Rian lowered the relic. Then go in peace. The men turned and left without another word. When they were gone, Tomas exhaled shakily. They're not taking you. Rian shook his head. No, Elian looked at him. What will you do now? Rian studied the workshop, the home beyond it, the boy beside him. If you'll have me. I'd like to stay. Elian felt the answer rise before he could think. Then stay. Tomas grinned, a real, unguarded smile Elian had never seen from him before. Rian bowed his head. Thank you. Elian looked at the two of them, the boy who had wandered into his life, and the stranger who had carried a burden heavier than any wood he had ever carved. For the first time in years, the silence around him felt different. Not hollow, full. In the end, nothing unfolded the way Elian expected. The boy he never asked for became the son he needed. The stranger he feared became the brother he prayed for without knowing it. And the life he thought had ended with loss quietly opened into something new, not perfect, not without scars, but whole in a way he could finally understand. Rian found a place where he no longer had to run. Tomas found a home where he no longer had to steal. And Elian found a purpose that grief had once buried beneath silence and sorrow. Together, They built something stronger than any vow, stronger than any relic. They built a family shaped by mercy, trust, and the quiet work of healing. God's plan had never abandoned them. It had simply taken a shape they could not recognize at first, and so it is with us. We do not always see the purpose in our pain, nor the meaning in the people who enter our lives at unexpected moments. But every meeting, every burden, every act of compassion carries a thread of something larger, something guided, something intentional. If this story leaves you with anything, let it be this: never doubt God's plan. Even in silence, He is working, even in sorrow, He is shaping, and even in the most unlikely of people, He sends the answers we didn't know we were waiting for.